Well, hi everyone. Let's talk about whether our pattern is going to really slip back towards that fall-like structure or whether we're not really done yet with those summer temps. Let's first of all talk about why it really is so much hotter during the summer months. First of all, our jet stream tends to form what we call a stable warm ridge. So we get all this heat to pile up in the center part of the country, and the jet stream arcs up into Canada. We call that a ridge. Typically under it, you'll have a high pressure system, hot and dry air, especially kind of over towards Southern California and Arizona, and dry air through a lot of the Midwest. Of course, we could still get rains in here, and actually during July, we tend to get that monsoon season going over Colorado. But for the rest of the country, we tend to have drier, warm, and even hot, stable air. So that wants to keep our temperatures mostly in the 80s and 90s across Colorado. But then as we get towards September going into fall, we get some changes to occur. Cooler air comes in because we have less sunlight that cools down the north, and our jet stream is then more prone to active, colder swings. This is actually called a trough, where the jet stream will dip down way like this. It's not always as aggressive as I've drawn it, but typically this will allow colder air to settle in from Canada. We'll call those cold fronts. Even Arctic air that's coming out near the Arctic Circle come down into the northern U.S. We call those Arctic fronts. This typically generates some low pressure systems over by the Midwest. It'll actually give the Midwest kind of a secondary severe weather season. Usually late September to early October, we get a lot of tornadoes over from Dallas, Texas, up into Missouri, Iowa, even parts of Nebraska can have some pretty big storms. But for us in Colorado, we'll just see some more swings of cooler temperatures, and that wind will often come back. Remember how windy it was back towards January? Well, when we have those changing seasons, we'll tend to get some wind to swing on in. Let's actually check this against what's happening right now and see how close we are. So we got cool over the weekend. This is why the jet stream didn't do as aggressive as I showed, but it did really show that little trough right here. And I think we're going to get another swing next week. We actually can go out to this piece of the jet stream right here in the ocean to see that. This is probably going to dig down and do a pretty big sweep, kind of like I drawn in that previous picture. And I think next weekend we have a very good shot, as long as this holds true, on seeing our temperatures return to the 60s and 70s. Now, as we keep going into fall, we're going to lose more sunshine. Cooler air will stick around through more parts of the United States, and we'll be able to get that more stable temperature back towards the 60s, 70s, and eventually in winter, it's going to fall lower. Can we still get 80s and 90s? Absolutely. But the takeaway is that it's going to be a lot more difficult, especially once we start fall.